What is a chapter clerk? If you don't know, then the other part of my job title, the bit in brackets, is Chief Operating Officer, so that may give you more of an idea. I'm responsible for the lay side of the Cathedral, overseeing strategy, finances, human resources, compliance, all the business operations that you will see in most organisations. So that is what I do. How then have I ended up here, and can it be seen as a vocation? Church has been in my life since I was very little. I was christened C of E, but my formative years were in a Baptist church, where my older siblings were part of the Boys and Girls Brigade and a lively young people's fellowship, so I followed. From early on, church was a place I felt welcomed. I was a shy child, academically able, but with few close friends at school until I was in my teens. But at church I had friends, and I really felt I belonged. And I look back now and see how important that was to the young me. Church was a place of welcome and acceptance. A deeper encounter with God came later. My father died when I was 12 from motor neurone disease, and during the 18 months of his illness, I started asking questions about God and faith. After he died, I was baptised, and at that point I remember thinking to myself, well, that's that then. I've decided I believed in God. There we go. Looking back, my naive 13-year-old self didn't recognise that my decision that I believed in God was going to take me on a lifelong journey. I thought I'd made the choice to believe in him, and that was that. At some future point, I would die and go to heaven, and in between, I needed to try and be a good person. In the years that followed, I finished school, I went to Warwick University and studied psychology and philosophy. And 36 years later now, I can see how at different points in my life, God worked through the people around me, some of whom asked me key questions at the right time. Life took unexpected turns after uni. My initial plans were to train either as a clinical or educational psychologist. I knew that I wanted to make a difference to other people in the work that I was going to do. But the reality of what that would be was pretty hard to identify. Through the university, I was able to spend a day a week in a psychiatric hospital for a few months, observing clinicians and other care professionals. And I realised that despite my good intentions, clinical psychology was not for me. So I began a postgrad course to qualify as a teacher, with the longer-term aim of qualifying as an educational psychologist. But that too wasn't what I thought it would be. And I thought it was time to stop and think. The end of a long-standing relationship came at the same time, and life was suddenly very different to that which I had imagined. So I stopped. I took some time out, and I started asking God what he wanted of me. I'd rather drifted away from going to church, and I certainly hadn't asked him how I could serve. But this was a bit of a pivotal time in my life. I felt I'd failed in my career ideas, and the end of the relationship, and all of life felt very uncertain. I remember going on a walk in the Peak District, standing in a field in the pouring rain, dripping wet, saying, "Okay, God, what can I do? And what are you saying to me?" I didn't get a quick reply, but I knew at that point that I wanted God to use the gifts I had in some way. Finances necessitated a job, and I started work as an administrator, something I have to confess I never wanted to do. Honestly, it didn't appeal. I didn't think it was altruistic enough. But God, as I have found time and again over the years, does know what he's about. And bit by bit, job by job, I started to see how I could serve and use my developing business skills and expertise to good effect. From initial admin roles, I moved into managerial positions, always in the public sector, and then had 15 years at Bournemouth University. Initially, I was a finance and resources manager, then director of operations, and ultimately led an organisational change programme. And then my husband saw the chapter clerk role for Salisbury Cathedral being advertised. "What about this?" he said. Initially, I discounted applying. It would have meant a drop in salary, and I knew the university was keen that I stayed. But he kept prompting me, and my curiosity and the possibility of using my professional skills in an organisation whose purpose reflected my faith led me to put an application in and just see what happened. 7 years later, I'm still here. So can what I do be considered a vocation? Well, in every organisation I've worked for, I have strived to be a manager and a leader who carries out my role in a way that is reflective of my faith. Honesty, integrity, compassion, openness, willing to speak the truth. They're critical, in my view, to good leadership and management. There have been times in pretty much every managerial job where I have said to God, "What on earth am I doing here? Why am I dealing with these pressures?" And in most instances, I haven't had a direct answer. But I have had the sense that I was making a difference for other people, for the place where I was, and that I was holding to the values, to the way that God calls us to live, and that was important in those roles. I think I've always thought of vocation as being whether you feel called into the ministry or not. I have led a service every month in my parish church since 2006, and at times different vicars have said to me, did I feel called into the ministry, and if that might be my vocation? The answer is that I have not felt God calling me, or not yet, at any rate, not into ministry. But I think that cemented the idea that vocation was about being a priest. But my perceptions have changed. I may not have followed a well-thought-out career path, but I do believe that I have served God and others in my different roles, and that I do so here as chapter clerk. All organisations, and the Cathedral is no different, need to be well run. Chapter members have specific responsibilities, and soon they will be charity trustees, reinforcing their tasks to ensure accountability, to ensure that resources are responsibly managed, and that they are acting in the Cathedral's best interest. The role that I hold is one which enables chapter members to carry out those duties. I see it as essential to the good stewardship of this beautiful and special place. My personal view is that a chapter clerk needs to understand and not just empathise with the fundamental purpose of the Cathedral as a place of worship and ministry for God. I think you need to have a faith to do the job well. And my vocation in this place, therefore, is to be a part of its purpose and its ministry, bringing my business management skills and expertise to serve God here in that way. God continues to guide me, and over the years I've learned to wait for him, to grow with him, to trust him, and I'm still doing so. I would say now to my 13-year-old self, who thought that that was it in having been baptised, that actually I was at the start of a lifelong journey. I would tell myself to take time, to listen, to be open, and to know that God will show me where I need to be and how to serve. Let me finish with some words from Thomas Merton. Obedience to God means, first of all, waiting, having to wait. To say that I am a child of God is to say before everything else that I grow. The child of God, therefore, is one of living growth, becoming, possibility, risk, and joy. The life of the child of God is not in the development of spirituality, but in obedience to the Good Shepherd who seeks him. Amen.